I'm curious, net, how do accountants perceive financial advisors?
I think a lot of this comes down to it depends on the scale of where the relationship is and what kind of tax professional they're dealing with. Because I think there's a couple different buckets that tax professionals can go into in my experience. And it's definitely a person. I'm very big into personality typing and
Mm,
understanding people cognitively. And I think a lot of the blowback that advisors experience when dealing with accountants is because typically the profile for an accountant is they're very traditional. They don't like change. They don't like change out of the status quo. How we've done it is the way we're going to do it, very much that mindset. And so when you bring in creative ideas or planning or things like that, they have a kind of, and this is just very broad brush, they can tend to have a very smallness of mind in terms of how they think about the value that they create, how they think about the value that the advisor's creating. Because, even a lot of CPAs, like for instance, I don't do hourly billing because I think that disincentivizes the kind of relationship that I want with an advisor. And a lot of CPAs will, not CPAs, a lot of tax professionals will give blowback to people that are doing, value billing because they say, well, it's, how could you charge those outrageous fees? It only takes you X amount of time. And it's like, well, it's not about the time, it's about the value. Like I've spent my whole career learning this stuff. How do I get compensated for all of that? Right? It doesn't matter. And so I think with advisors, they tend to be different cognitive profiles where they're entrepreneurial, they're extroverted, they aren't afraid to ask for what they're worth. And so they can run into this challenge with the tax professionals because the tax professionals are very scarcity minded. They're very, overly cautious. So not like in a positive way, but I see tax professionals sometimes where they'll advise people against doing things that are like tax planning moves that are just like well established in the tax code and have been through tax court and totally fine because they didn't want to take the time to learn how to do the whole process or, this is
interesting.
something different. And I encounter that a lot, but it just depends on the tax professional. But those are, kind of the stereotype generalities. And so I think for a lot of advisors, the way to, kind of break out of that is having, you need to be really selective about the types of accountants that you're working with on a COI basis. And you really need to make sure you have alignment around what's going on with this person's mindset and how are they viewing
Yeah.
things. Because like that situation you mentioned, I was talking to an advisor yesterday where he said he had a client, really good prospect for them, $1 million, AUM ad. And they had done all of this forecasting and projecting for basically the client's RMDs and how, they were going to get walloped in the tax. And so they did all these, forecasts and projections and said, okay, let's do some strategic Roth conversions. And I don't have all the details to know whether or not that was good advice, but he said the client went to their tax professional and the tax professional shot it down without even having a conversation to him and the team to understand why or to see the projections, and is just like off the cuff, and then he lost the prospect. And I'm like, that's so typical. Because you see the tax professionals where they're like, well, I don't know, that sounds like a lot of work. Let's whatever. And then I'm sure the advisor was recommending something where it was genuinely going to have a better outcome for this client, because he did all the projections and holistic plan and really worked the numbers
Mm,
and figured it out. And the tax accountant probably after not having done any work just said, I don't think that's a good idea. And the client went with the tax professional because I think it's just in the client's mind, there is a level of trust with tax professionals that I don't think advisors feel that, where if the tax person says something, the clients, I think maybe it stems from a fear of the IRS or just how our industry is regarded, that people tend to trust us more quickly. And I don't know that trust is all that is well placed, but it is what it is.